My stepson shoved me to the floor. "That's my dad's seat, not yours." My wife said nothing. I walked out without a word. That night, everything changed. The next morning, I woke up to 23 missed calls, and a truth about my family I never saw coming. What they've been doing behind my back made my blood run cold. My name is Raymond Holland. Friend call me Ray. I'm 59 years old, and I've spent the last 25 years running Holland Hardware on Main Street in Cedar Falls, Iowa. It's not fancy work, but it's honest. I know every bolt in aisle 3 and every customer by name. My father taught me that a man's word and his reputation are the only things that truly belong to him. I built my business on that principle. New Year's Day started like it should have, calm, full of promise. Patricia, my wife of 8 years, had been cooking since dawn. The house smelled like glazed ham and her mother's sweet potato casserole recipe. She'd invited her son Justin and his biological father Lance over for dinner. I didn't love the idea of Lance being there, but Pat said it mattered to Justin, so I kept my mouth shut. That's what you do when you love someone. You make space. Justin arrived first, shoulders back, that edge in his walk like the world owed him something. 30 years old, and still acting like a kid who never got picked first. Lance showed up 20 minutes later, loud, confident, filling the doorway like he owned the place. Pat smiled wider when Lance walked in than she had all morning. I noticed, but I didn't say anything. We sat down to eat. I took my usual seat at the head of the table, the one I'd sat in every holiday for 8 years, the one where the host sits. Justin stopped me cold. "Hold up," he said, his hand gripping the back of my chair. I looked at him, confused. "What's wrong?" He nodded toward Lance like he was introducing royalty. "That's my dad's seat, not yours." The room went silent. Forks froze midair. Someone's breath caught. Patricia stared down at her plate like the pattern needed counting. I waited for her to say something. Anything. She didn't. Justin shoved me. Not a nudge. A real, two-handed shove to my chest. The chair scraped backward. My heel caught the rug, and I went down hard. Pain shot through my hip, sharp and hot. I lay there on the floor, staring up at the ceiling, tasting something metallic. Nobody moved to help me up. Lance didn't even flinch. Justin stood over me, breathing hard, like he'd been holding that in for years. I pushed myself up slowly, steadying against the table. I looked at Patricia one more time. She still wouldn't meet my eyes. So I nodded once and walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I just left. The cold hit me like a wall. I sat in my truck with my hands on the wheel, watching my breath fog the windshield. Through the window, I could see them moving around inside, sitting back down, laughing, like nothing had happened. I drove home, the house I'd owned before I ever met Patricia. I changed out of my stained shirt, checked the bruise already spreading across my hip, and sat down in my recliner with an ice pack. My phone started buzzing. Patricia. I let it ring. Justin. Ring. Lance. Ring. I didn't answer any of them. Not because I wanted revenge. Because if I opened my mouth, I wasn't sure I'd say anything worth hearing. That night, I barely slept. When I finally did, it came in pieces, broken and restless. The next morning, my phone lit up like a fireworks show. 23 missed calls. I stood at my kitchen window with cold coffee in my hand and watched the neighborhood wake up. Garage doors opening. Cars backing out. Ordinary life moving forward like the ground hadn't just shifted under my feet. Something had shifted. Whatever happened after I walked out had found its way back to me. And it wasn't finished. I didn't answer the phone that morning. 23 missed calls sat there like a stack of unpaid bills, heavy with whatever they carried. I let them sit. I made fresh coffee and stood at my kitchen counter, listening to the house settle. The furnace kicked on. The refrigerator hummed. Normal sounds that reminded me I was still standing. I scrolled through the call log. Patricia, 5 times. Justin, 4. Lance, twice. And then a number I didn't recognize, called 3 times between 6 and 7 a.m. That one made my stomach tighten. I tapped the voicemail. "Mr. Holland, this is Denise Carter with First Community Credit Union. We need to discuss an urgent matter regarding your account. Please call us back as soon as possible." Urgent. That word doesn't get thrown around unless someone needs you to move fast or carefully. I grabbed my coat and keys without sitting down to think about it, thinking it'd done enough damage already. The credit union was 10 minutes away, parking lot half empty under a gray sky that looked like it was holding its breath. I sat in my truck for a moment, feeling the ache in my hip, then went inside. Denise met me in the lobby with a smile that was professional, but didn't pretend this was routine. She led me to a small office that smelled like toner and burnt coffee. "Thank you for coming in so quickly," Denise said, sliding a folder across the desk. "There's a personal line of credit that was open 9 months ago. You're listed as the primary borrower. 2 payments have been missed. That's what triggered the alert." I felt the words land before I answered. "I didn't open a line of credit." She nodded like she'd expected that. "The file includes your name and a signature attributed to you." She turned the page so I could see it. From across the desk, it looked close enough. The slant was familiar, the way the letters connected. But when I leaned in, I could see it was wrong. Too careful in places where I was always quick. Too loose where I was tight. "That's not my signature," I said. Denise didn't react. She reached into a drawer and set a form on the desk. "Statement of unauthorized use. If you sign this, we open a fraud investigation. An investigator will contact you. We'll compare signatures, review access, document timelines. It can have serious consequences for whoever submitted the paperwork." I leaned back and looked at the ceiling tile. I thought about Patricia's eyes on her plate, about Justin's hands on my chest, about all the times I've been asked to smooth things over because family. "I'm not making this decision out of anger," I said. "I'm making it because my name means something." I signed. The pen moved the way it always had. No hesitation. As soon as the ink dried, my phone buzzed. "Patricia." Denise glanced at it. "You don't have to take that here." "I know," I said. I didn't answer. Outside, I sat in my truck and listened to the engine idle. My phone buzzed again. This time, Justin. Then a voicemail came through. I played it. "Ray, listen," Justin said, his voice tight. "There's some stupid banking thing. They froze my account. Just call them and tell them you signed it." "Okay. Just fix this." I closed my eyes. That was fast. Too fast. So that's what this was. The credit line wasn't for Patricia. It was for Justin, and she'd sign my name to guarantee it. I drove to the American Legion on the east side of town. The coffee there tasted like it always did, strong and bitter. The men didn't ask questions until they needed to. Walt Perkins sat in the corner with a newspaper folded into quarters. 74 years old, retired lawyer, the kind of man who read the fine print so the rest of U.S. didn't get eaten alive. I slid the folder across the table. "I need to look at this." He skimmed it, stopped at the signature page, tapped it once with his finger. "That's not you." "No," I said. "It isn't." Walt leaned back in his chair. "This isn't a family disagreement, Ray. This is identity fraud. If you let it slide, it won't stop here. Next time it'll be your retirement account or the deed to your store." "I'm not trying to blow up my life," I said. "You didn't," he replied. "They did. All you're doing now is refusing to protect them from the consequences." My phone buzzed again. "Justin." I let it ring. Walt tapped the folder. "You want my advice? Document everything. Dates, times, what was said. No opinions, just facts. And don't talk to them until this is settled." I drove home and pulled out a notebook. I wrote down everything I could remember. Christmas, the shove, the calls, the loan. No adjectives, just what happened. By the time I finished, the sun was setting. My phone had gone quiet. Not because anything was resolved, because everyone had said what they could. I sat in my recliner with a notebook on my lap and realized something I hadn't been able to see before. The ground was shifting, and for the first time, I wasn't trying to stop it. The investigator called 2 days later. His name was Martin Reese, and his voice had the kind of calm that comes from seeing everything twice. "Mr. Holland, I've been assigned to your case," he said. "I'd like to meet today if you're available." "I am," I said. He met me at the credit union in the same small office where I'd signed the fraud statement. Martin was in his early 50s, gray at the temples, wearing a suit that had seen a lot of conference rooms. He set a recorder on the table and explained the process like he was walking me through a repair manual. "I'll ask questions about the account and your signature," he said. "You can stop anytime." "I'm not here to stop," I replied. He had me sign my name 10 times on blank paper, the same way I always did. Same pressure, same slant, same muscle memory I'd had since high school. Then he compared them to the scan in the file. "That's not a match," he said, pointing to the differences. "Whoever did this tried, but they didn't get the rhythm right." "No," I said. "They didn't." He asked who had access to my personal information. I told him the truth. Marriage looks like trust until it stops being that. When we finished, Martin closed the folder. "The preliminary findings will be forwarded to the county prosecutor. That doesn't guarantee charges, but it means this is formal now. Be prepared for contact. I nodded and left. At home, I was going through my closet looking for an old jacket when I found something that didn't belong. A small black device, no bigger than a matchbook, tucked into the pocket of a coat I hadn't worn in months. I pulled it out and turned it over in my hand. A voice recorder. My stomach went cold. I checked my other coats. Found another one. Then I checked the living room, running my hands along the bookshelf, behind picture frames. I found 2 more. 4 in total. Someone had been recording me in my own house. I called Martin Reese immediately. I found recording devices, I said when he answered. Hidden in my home. There was a pause. Don't touch them anymore. I'm sending someone to collect them as evidence. A tech from the sheriff's office came that afternoon, bagged the devices, and told me they'd analyze the contents. 2 days later, Martin called back. We pulled the audio files, he said. Most of it is just daily conversation. Nothing incriminating on your end. But there's metadata showing when they were placed. About 4 months ago. Who put them there? I asked, though I already knew. We can't prove it yet, Martin said carefully. But the timing matches up with visits your stepson made to your home. Justin. He'd been recording me, looking for something, anything he could use to make me look bad, to build a case that I was the problem. I sat down hard in my chair, the weight of it settling in. This wasn't just about money. This was a plan. A long one. I called Walt. They were recording me, I said, in my own house. Walt was quiet for a moment. That changes things. That's invasion of privacy. Possibly illegal wiretapping, depending on how it was done. What do I do? Let the investigators handle it, Walt said. But Ray, this isn't a prank. This is calculated. You need to be ready for this to get uglier before it gets better. That night, I sat in my living room and looked at the spaces where those devices had been hidden. I thought about every conversation I'd had in this house over the past 4 months. Every private moment. Every time I thought I was alone. I wasn't angry. Anger burns hot and fades. This was colder. This was clarity. They hadn't just stolen my name. They'd stolen my peace. And I was done letting them get away with it. 3 days after I found the recording devices, my son Jordan called. Dad, I'm coming home, he said. His voice was steady, the way it always was. Jordan didn't waste words. You don't have to do that, I said. Yeah, I do. Jordan arrived the next evening. 32 years old, lean and solid from years of Taekwondo training. He ran a small martial arts school in Des Moines, teaching discipline to kids who needed it. He'd earned his 4th-degree black belt 2 years ago, and I'd never been prouder. He walked in, dropped his bag by the door, and pulled me into a hug that was careful around my bruised hip. You okay? He asked, stepping back to look at me. I've been better, I admitted. Tell me everything. I did. The shove, the fraud, the recordings. Jordan listened without interrupting, his jaw tightening with every sentence. When I finished, he said, Where's Justin now? At Patricia's place, I assume. Jordan nodded slowly. I want to talk to him. No, I said firmly. That's not how we're doing this. Dad, he put his hands on you. And if you put your hands on him, you know better. We handle this the right way. Through the system. With evidence and lawyers. Not fists. Jordan looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, your way. But I'm staying until this is settled. I appreciate that. Over the next few days, Jordan helped me go through everything. He organized my notes, made copies of documents, even called Martin Reese to ask questions I hadn't thought of. He was methodical, focused. I'd raised him to think before acting, and it showed. On the 4th day, we ran into Justin at the grocery store. It wasn't planned. I was picking up coffee. Jordan was grabbing milk. We turned down the cereal aisle, and there he was. Justin froze when he saw us. Jordan didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, shoulders relaxed, hands at his sides. But the way he looked at Justin said everything. Justin's face went red. What are you doing here? Visiting my dad, Jordan said evenly. The one you shoved to the floor. That's not how it happened. Justin shot back. I don't care how you remember it, Jordan said. I care what you did, and what you're going to answer for. Justin stepped forward, trying to get in Jordan's space. You threatening me? Jordan didn't move. No, I don't need to. The law's going to handle you just fine. I put a hand on Jordan's shoulder. Let's go. We walked away. Justin stood there, shaking, but he didn't follow. In the truck, Jordan let out a slow breath. That was harder than I thought. You did good, I said. You didn't give him what he wanted. What did he want? A reason to play the victim, I said. You didn't give it to him. That night, Jordan and I sat in my living room with the TV on low. He was drinking water. I had decaf coffee. You know what the hardest part of Taekwondo is? Jordan asked. What's that? Knowing when not to fight. He said. Any fool can throw a punch. It takes real strength to walk away. I looked at my son and realized something. I taught him that. Not with words, but with years of showing him what it meant to be steady, to be patient, to choose the right battle. I'm proud of you, I said. I learned it from you, Dad. We sat there in the quiet, and for the first time in days, I didn't feel alone. The call came on a Tuesday morning. A woman's voice, crisp and professional. Mr. Holland, this is Evelyn Park from Heritage Antiques on 5th Street. I need to speak with you about a rather unusual situation. I'm listening, I said. About 3 weeks ago, a woman and a young man came into my shop with a walnut wall clock. They wanted to sell it. The woman said it belonged to her husband, but something felt off. I told them I needed to verify provenance before making an offer. My chest tightened. What did this clock look like? Walnut frame, brass hands, pendulum mechanism. There was an inscription on the back. To Raymond, from your father. Time is the only thing we can't buy back. The room tilted. That was my father's clock. The one he'd left me when he died. The one that had hung in Patricia's dining room for 8 years. That's my clock, I said. Who tried to sell it? The woman gave the name Patricia Holland. The young man was with her. They seemed impatient when I wouldn't buy it immediately. Did you buy it? I asked. No. I told them I needed 48 hours to research it. They never came back. I sat down hard. Why are you calling me now? Because I did research it, Evelyn said. Mr. Holland, that clock was made by Samuel Easterbrook in 1891. He only made 37 clocks in his entire career. I had it authenticated through photographs they left with me. If it's in good condition, it's worth approximately $45,000. The words didn't land at first. $45,000. They tried to sell it for how much? I asked. They wanted $500, Evelyn said quietly. I suspect they had no idea what they had. I closed my eyes. My father's clock. The only thing he'd left me that mattered. And Patricia and Justin had tried to sell it for pocket change. Where's the clock now? I asked. I assume it's still wherever they took it from. They haven't returned. Thank you for calling me, I said. I'll handle this. I hung up and immediately called Walt. They tried to sell my father's clock, I said. The one from the house. It's worth $45,000. Walt was quiet for a moment. Did they succeed? No. The dealer got suspicious. Ray, you need to get that clock back. Today. Before it disappears. I called Jordan. We're going to Patricia's house. 20 minutes later, we pulled up to the house I'd helped pay the mortgage on for 8 years. The house where I'd hung that clock with my own hands. I knocked. Patricia answered, her face pale when she saw me. Ray, I don't think this is a good time, she said. I'm here for my father's clock, I said. What clock? But her eyes flickered toward the dining room. The one you tried to sell at Heritage Antiques 3 weeks ago. Her face went white. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. Evelyn Park called me. She told me everything. Patricia's hand started shaking. Justin said it was just an old clock. He said we could get a few hundred for it. It's worth $45,000, I said. And it was never yours to sell. Justin appeared behind her. You can't just come in here demanding things. Jordan stepped forward. It's his property. You try to sell stolen property. It was in the house, Justin said. A house I don't live in anymore, I said. That clock belongs to me. I want it. Now. Patricia started crying. It's in the garage. We didn't sell it. I swear. I walked past her, Jordan behind me. In the garage, covered in a sheet, was my father's clock. I ran my hand over the walnut frame, checking for damage. It was dusty but intact. Jordan and I carried it to my truck. As we loaded it, Justin came out. You're really going to take everything, aren't you? He said. I looked at him. I'm taking what's mine. What you tried to steal. We didn't steal it. You tried to sell something that didn't belong to you, I said. That's theft. And if you'd succeeded, I'd have pressed charges. We drove back to my house. I hung the clock in my living room, right where I could see it every day. When I plugged it in, the ticking filled the room. Steady. Honest. Exactly like my father. That night, Martin Rees called. We've completed the investigation, he said. The prosecutor is moving forward. Your wife and stepson will be formally charged with fraud and identity theft. There's also the matter of the recording devices. That's illegal wiretapping. What happens now? I asked. Arraignment in 3 weeks. They'll be notified. I recommend you prepare yourself. This is going to get complicated. I hung up and looked at the clock. $45,000. But that wasn't why it mattered. It mattered because it was the last thing my father gave me. And I'd almost lost it to people who saw it as trash. Jordan sat across from me. You okay, Dad? Yeah, I said. I am. The arraignment was set for a Thursday morning. I wore a suit I'd bought for my father's funeral and hadn't worn since. Jordan came with me, quiet and steady. The courthouse smelled like floor wax and old paper. Patricia sat on a bench outside the courtroom, with Justin beside her. She looked smaller than I remembered. Justin stared at the floor. When they called our case, we filed into the courtroom. The judge was a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and eyes that didn't miss anything. The prosecutor laid out the charges. Fraud, identity theft, illegal wiretapping. Justin's lawyer, a young guy in an ill-fitting suit, tried to spin it as a misunderstanding. Your Honor, this is a family matter that's been blown out of proportion, he said. The judge raised her hand. I'll decide what's proportionate after I hear the evidence. The prosecutor called Evelyn Park as a witness. She testified about the clock, the attempted sale, the lack of ownership proof. Then Martin Reese took the stand, walking through the signature analysis and the recording devices. When it was my turn, I kept it simple. I told the truth. No embellishment. Justin's lawyer stood up for cross-examination. Mr. Holland, isn't it true that you and your wife have financial disagreements? We had disagreements, I said, but I never gave her permission to use my name for credit. And these recording devices, couldn't they have been placed by someone else? The metadata shows they were placed during times my stepson visited my home. I didn't have other visitors. The lawyer sat down. Then the prosecutor stood. Your Honor, there's one more matter to address. He slid a document across to the judge, then handed a copy to Justin's lawyer. I couldn't see what it was, but Justin's face went pale. What is this? The judge asked. A background check on Lance Hartman, the biological father of Justin Holland, the prosecutor said. Lance. I'd almost forgotten about him. Mr. Hartman served 8 years in federal prison for wire fraud and identity theft, the prosecutor continued. Released in 2015. He has a documented history of teaching these same techniques to associates. The courtroom went silent. The judge looked at Justin. Your biological father is a convicted fraudster. Justin's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client is not responsible for his father's criminal history. No, the judge said, but it establishes a pattern. It suggests where he learned these skills. She turned to Patricia. Mrs. Holland, did you know about Mr. Hartman's criminal record? Patricia's voice was barely a whisper. Yes. And you allowed him around your son? Around your husband's home? I thought he'd change, Patricia said. The judge shook her head. This isn't a family misunderstanding. This is a coordinated fraud. Bail is set at $50,000 each. Trial date in 60 days. The gavel came down. Outside, Jordan and I stood in the parking lot. Patricia and Justin were led to a bail bondsman's office across the street. Did you know about Lance's record? Jordan asked. No, I said. But it makes sense now. All of it. We drove to the American Legion. Walt was waiting with coffee. How'd it go? He asked. The prosecutor found out Justin's father is a convicted fraudster, I said. Walt nodded slowly. That changes the narrative. This isn't a desperate wife helping her son. This is a pattern of behavior taught by a career criminal. Patricia knew, I said. She knew what Lance was, and she brought it back into their lives anyway. And into yours, Walt said. I sat there with my coffee, thinking about all the dinners, all the holidays, all the times I'd welcomed Lance into my home because Patricia asked me to. I'd been harboring a criminal without knowing it. What happens now? I asked. You prepare for trial, Walt said. And you accept that the woman you married isn't who you thought she was. That night, I sat beneath my father's clock and listened to it tick. Steady and true, just like he'd always been. Jordan sat across from me. You did the right thing, Dad. Doesn't feel right, I said. It never does when you're the one who has to draw the line. But someone had to. I looked at my son and realized he was right. Someone had to say no. Someone had to stop protecting them from consequences. That someone was me. 2 weeks after the arraignment, Jordan showed me his phone at breakfast. "Dad, you need to see this." It was Justin's Facebook page. Public posts, dozens of them, all from the past week. My stepdad abused me for years. Nobody believed me. Now he's trying to destroy my life because I finally stood up to him. Another post. "Ray Holland is a violent man who terrorized our family. Ask anyone who knows him. He put his hands on me multiple times." Another. "I'm speaking my truth. Ray Holland is a predator who hides behind his business reputation." I felt my blood pressure spike. Every word was a lie. I'd never laid a hand on Justin. Never raised my voice to him beyond normal disagreements. This was fabrication, pure and simple. "There's more," Jordan said, scrolling. He posted photos. Old family photos from holidays and birthdays, but Justin had captioned them with lies. This was taken 1 week after he shoved me into a wall. Forced to smile for the camera while living in fear. Comments piled up underneath. People I didn't know, calling me a monster. Demanding I be arrested. Saying I should lose my business. "How many people have seen this?" I asked. Jordan checked. The main post has been shared 240 times. 240. In Cedar Falls, that was half the town. "I'm calling Walt," I said. An hour later, we sat in Walt's living room. He read through the posts with his reading glasses perched on his nose, his expression growing darker with each swipe. "This is defamation," he said. "Libel, specifically. False statements published to damage your reputation. Can we do anything about it?" I asked. "Yes, we can sue him for defamation. But Ray, you need to understand what that means. It's going to be public. It's going to be expensive. And it's going to get ugly." Jordan spoke up. "He's already made it public. He's already made it ugly." Walt looked at him, then at me. "The boy's right. Staying silent now, just let the lies spread. You need to fight back." "Then let's fight," I said. Walt drafted a cease and desist letter that afternoon. By evening, it was delivered to Justin and his lawyer. The letter demanded Justin remove all posts, issue a public retraction, and refrain from making any further false statements. Justin's response came 2 days later. He deleted the posts, but posted one final message. "My lawyer says I can't talk about this anymore. But the truth will come out." That wasn't a retraction. That was doubling down. Walt filed a civil lawsuit for defamation the next morning. $100,000 in damages. Loss of business reputation. Emotional distress. The works. 3 days later, I lost my first customer. Greg Paulson had been buying supplies from Holland Hardware for 15 years. He walked in, looked uncomfortable, and said, "Ray, I need to take my business elsewhere for a while." "Why?" I asked, though I already knew. "My wife saw those posts before they got deleted. She thinks maybe there's something to it." I told her I don't believe it, but she's insistent. "Greg, you've known me for 15 years. I know, and I'm sorry, but I've got to keep the peace at home." He left. I stood there behind the counter, feeling the weight of what Justin had done. It wasn't just lies. It was destruction of everything I'd built. Jordan found me in the back room an hour later, staring at inventory I didn't see. "We're going to win this," he said. "Win what?" "Even if we win in court, people will always wonder. That's how these things work. Accusations stick. Retractions don't. Then we make the retraction stick," Jordan said. "We make it louder than the accusation." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed thinking about my father, about the hardware store he'd helped me open 25 years ago, about the reputation I'd built one honest transaction at a time. Justin had tried to burn it all down with lies. But I wasn't going to let him. The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I recorded a video on my phone and posted it to the hardware store's Facebook page. "My name is Raymond Holland," I said to the camera. "Some of you may have seen posts about me recently. Posts claiming I abused my stepson. Those posts are lies. Complete fabrications. I have never abused anyone. I am currently involved in a legal case because my stepson and his mother committed fraud using my identity. Rather than face the consequences, he chose to attack my character with false accusations. I filed a defamation lawsuit. The truth will come out in court. Until then, I wanted you to hear it from me directly. I've served this community for 25 years with honesty and integrity. That hasn't changed." I posted it. Within an hour, it had 50 comments. Most of them supportive. Some skeptical. But at least my voice was in the conversation now. Jordan sat beside me as we watched the comments roll in. "You did good, Dad," he said. I hope so, I replied. Because once you step into the arena, there's no stepping back out. The trial date was 6 weeks away when everything came to a head. Jordan and I were leaving the courthouse after a pre-trial hearing. Just routine stuff, procedural motions, nothing dramatic. We walked through the lobby, pushed through the glass doors, and headed toward the parking lot. That's when I saw them. Justin and Lance, standing next to a pickup truck, smoking cigarettes. They saw us at the same time. Justin dropped his cigarette and started walking toward us. Lance followed. There he is, Justin said loudly. The man who's trying to ruin my life. I kept walking. I'm not doing this here, Justin. You don't get to ignore me, he said, stepping in front of me. Jordan moved between us. Back up. Or what? Justin said, getting in Jordan's face. You gonna hit me? Go ahead. Give me another lawsuit. Nobody's hitting anyone, I said. Move aside. Lance spoke up from behind Justin. You think you're better than us, don't you? Walking around like you own this town. I think I'm a man who doesn't commit fraud, I said. Justin's face went red. You sanctimonious piece of... He shoved Jordan. Hard, 2 hands to the chest. That was his mistake. Jordan didn't shove back. He didn't need to. Years of Taekwondo training had taught him control, precision, economy of motion. Justin came at him again, swinging wild. Jordan sidestepped, caught Justin's arm, and used his own momentum to spin him off balance. Justin stumbled, tried to recover, threw another punch. Jordan blocked it, stepped inside Justin's guard, and delivered one palm strike to Justin's solar plexus. Not a punch, a push, but placed exactly right with exactly the right force. Justin's breath left him in a whoosh. He doubled over, gasping, and dropped to one knee. The whole thing took maybe 3 seconds. Lance started forward, but I stepped in front of him. Don't. He stopped, looking at Justin on the ground, then at Jordan standing calm and ready. You're done, I said to Lance. Take him and leave. A courthouse security guard came running out, radio in hand. What's going on here? This man assaulted my son, I said, pointing at Justin, who was still on the ground trying to breathe. There are cameras all over this parking lot. Check them. The guard looked at Jordan. You hit him. Self-defense, Jordan said. He shoved me first, then came at me swinging. I defended myself. Another guard appeared, and they separated us. 20 minutes later, we were in a security office watching the parking lot footage. It showed exactly what happened. Justin shoving Jordan. Justin swinging. Jordan defending himself with minimal force. The head of security looked at Justin. You want to press charges? Justin shook his head, still breathing hard. You're lucky, the guard said. That could have been assault. Get out of here. And if I see you starting anything else on courthouse property, you'll be arrested. Outside, Jordan and I got in my truck. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. You okay? Jordan asked. You could have been arrested, I said. But I wasn't. Because I kept control. Because you taught me to. I taught you not to fight. You taught me to defend myself without becoming the aggressor, Jordan said. That's exactly what I did. We drove to the American Legion. Walt was there, and I told him what happened. The cameras caught it all, he asked. Everything. Walt smiled grimly. Good. Because Justin's lawyer is going to try to use this. But video evidence of Justin throwing the first punch? That's gold. That night, the local news ran a story. Altercation at courthouse. They had the footage. They interviewed the security guard. The young man in the black jacket was clearly defending himself. The guard said on camera. The other individual was the aggressor. The young man in the black jacket was Jordan. I watched the news segment 3 times. Each time, I saw my son doing exactly what I taught him. Control. Precision. Defense without aggression. Jordan sat beside me. You know what my master told me when I earned my 4th Dan? What? He said the highest level of martial arts is winning without fighting. But the second highest is winning while making it look like you didn't fight at all. I looked at him. You made it look easy. That's the point, he said. If it looks hard, you're doing it wrong. My phone buzzed. A text from Walt. News footage is perfect. Justin's credibility just took another hit. I showed it to Jordan. Good, he said. Let them see who we really are. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Not because the fight was over, but because I knew my son had my back. And more importantly, he had his own. I was closing up the hardware store on a Thursday evening when I saw her through the front window. Andrea, my first wife, Jordan's mother. I hadn't seen her in nearly 3 years. She was older, gray threading through her dark hair, but she still moved with that same quiet confidence I remembered from 25 years ago. I unlocked the door and let her in. "Ray," she said. Her voice hadn't changed. "I hope this isn't weird." "It's unexpected," I said, "but not weird. What brings you to Cedar Falls?" "Jordan called me," she said. "He told me what's been happening. The fraud, the accusations, all of it. I wanted to see how you were holding up." I gestured to the back office. We sat in a cramped space that smelled like coffee and sawdust. "I'm managing," I said. "Jordan says you're doing more than managing. He says you're fighting back the right way." "I'm trying to." Andrea looked around the office, at the photos on the wall, the certificates from the Chamber of Commerce, the thank you letters from customers. "You built something good here, Ray. I always knew you would." "We built something good together once," I said, "before I got too focused on work and forgot what mattered." She smiled sadly. "We were young. We both made mistakes. I made more than my share." "Maybe," she said, "but you learned from them. That's what matters." We sat there in comfortable silence for a moment, the kind of silence that only exists between people who used to know each other completely. "Jordan also told me about the house Patricia and Justin tried to sell out from under you," Andrea said. "It's my house," I said. "I owned it before I married Patricia. She just lived there. And now Jordan wants to buy it at the foreclosure auction, as an investment property." Andrea raised an eyebrow. "How do you feel about that?" I told him not to. It felt like revenge, not business. "What did he say?" "He said it was both, and that sometimes revenge and justice look the same from different angles." Andrea leaned back. "He's not wrong, but I understand why you said no. Do you think I should let him do it?" I asked. She thought about it. "I think Jordan is 32 years old. He makes his own decisions. And honestly, Ray, if that house is going to auction anyway, why not keep it in the family? You could use it for something good later." I hadn't thought about it that way. "You always did see things clearer than me," I said. "Not clearer, just different." We talked for another hour. About Jordan, about her life in Des Moines, about the hardware store, about everything that had happened. It felt good to talk to someone who knew me before all of this. When she stood to leave, she hesitated. "Ray, I know this is going to sound strange, but I'm proud of you for how you're handling this. A lot of men would have just rolled over or lashed out. You're doing neither. I'm just trying to do the right thing." "That's why I'm proud," she said. At the door, she turned back. "Jordan invited me to stay in town for a few days. I'm at the Hampton Inn. Maybe we could have dinner tomorrow." "I like that," I said. After she left, I stood in the empty store and realized something. I'd spent 8 years with Patricia trying to build something new, but I'd never properly honored what I'd built with Andrea. We made a good man together. We'd raised Jordan right. That mattered more than any marriage certificate. The next evening, Andrea and I had dinner at a small Italian place on Main Street. We talked about Jordan's martial arts school, about my plans for the hardware store, about her work as a school counselor. "You ever think about what might have been?" she asked over coffee. "Sometimes," I admitted, "but I try not to live there. Can't change the past." "No," she said, "but you can learn from it." "What did you learn?" I asked. She smiled. "That good people can still hurt each other, and that walking away doesn't always mean giving up. Sometimes it means making space for both people to grow." "You grew," I said. "You became someone better. So did you, Ray. Look at what you built. Not just the store, your reputation, your relationship with Jordan. That doesn't happen by accident." When I drove her back to her hotel, she put her hand on mine. "I'm here for as long as you need me," she said, "even if that's just someone to talk to." "Thank you, Andy." She smiled at the old nickname. "You haven't called me that in years." "I know." That night, lying in bed, I thought about second chances. Not second chances at the same thing, but second chances at doing better. At being better. Andrea had been right all those years ago when she'd left. I'd been too focused on building a business and not focused enough on building a life. I wasn't going to make that mistake again. The foreclosure auction was held on a Wednesday morning at the county courthouse. Jordan insisted I didn't have to come, but I wanted to see it through. Patricia's house, the one I'd helped pay for, went up for bid at 9 a.m. Starting price was $160,000. Well below market value. Jordan bid. So did 3 other investors. The price climbed to $185,000. Jordan raised his paddle. $190. The auctioneer looked around. Going once. Twice. Sold to bidder 17. Bitter 17 was Jordan. Outside, I asked him what he planned to do with it. Rent it out for now, he said. Cover the mortgage. Then in a few years, maybe sell it. Or maybe you'll want to do something with it. Like what? I don't know. But it's yours if you ever want it. I looked at my son and realized he'd just given me the one thing Patricia and Justin had tried to take. Control. 2 weeks later, the criminal trial began. It lasted 3 days. The prosecutor presented the forged signature, the recording devices, the attempted sale of my father's clock. Patricia's lawyer tried to paint her as a desperate woman trying to help her son. The jury didn't buy it. Guilty on all counts. Patricia was sentenced to 2 years probation and ordered to pay restitution of $45,000 for the attempted theft of the clock. Justin got 18 months in county jail for fraud and illegal wiretapping. Lance disappeared before his trial date. There's a warrant out for his arrest. The defamation case settled out of court. Justin issued a public apology and paid $20,000 in damages. It didn't undo the harm, but it put the truth on record. I stood on the courthouse steps after the sentencing and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not happiness. Not vindication. Just peace. Jordan stood beside me. Andrea was there too. She'd stayed in town through the trial, and we'd been seeing each other. Not dating exactly. Just two people who'd grown up and learned things spending time together. You okay, Dad? Jordan asked. Yeah, I said. I am. 3 months later, I got a phone call from a company in Arizona. They wanted to buy Holland Hardware and bring me on as a regional manager. 6 locations. $95,000 a year plus benefits. It was the kind of opportunity I dreamed about 20 years ago. I called Andrea that night. What do you think? I asked. I think you need to decide what you want your next chapter to look like. What if I said I wanted it to look like us trying again? Older and smarter this time. There was a pause. Then she said, I'd say I'm willing to try if you are. Arizona's a long way from Des Moines, I said. Des Moines is a long way from Cedar Falls, she said. Distance has never been the problem, Ray. Priorities have. Then my priority is you, I said. If you'll have me. Let me think about it, she said. 2 weeks later, she called me back. I can transfer my counseling license to Arizona, and I've always wanted to see the desert. I accepted the job offer the next day. Jordan helped me pack up the hardware store. We sold it to a young couple who promised to keep the name. That mattered to me. On my last day in Cedar Falls, I stood in my living room with my father's clock wrapped carefully in blankets. Jordan had already loaded most of my things into the moving truck. You sure about this, Dad? He asked. I'm sure, I said. I spent too many years building things for other people. It's time to build something for myself. With Andy. With Andy. He smiled. Good. She makes you happy. We loaded the clock into my truck. As we drove away from the house, I looked in the rearview mirror one last time. Cedar Falls had been good to me, but Arizona was calling. And this time, I was answering with my eyes open and my priorities straight. Andrea met me at the Arizona state line. We drove the rest of the way together, talking about furniture and jobs and what we wanted our house to look like. No ghosts this time, she said. No ghosts, I agreed. Just us. The clock now hangs in our living room in Scottsdale. Its steady tick fills the space, constant and true. I'm 60 years old, and I finally learned what my father tried to teach me all along. Time is the only thing you can't buy back. So use it wisely. Use it on people who matter. Use it building things that last. I wasted 8 years on people who saw me as a resource. I'm not wasting another second.